Hey Nick, I want to try to get back with you. Thanks for your very thoughtful uh, questions and points with regard to money and the economy. Um, it's hard to know where to begin. When I read the comment stream down through here, a lot of focus on getting into resource economics or what the energy value, how to have an energy value for the future going forward. Will it be a carbon energy value? That's fine, but I say until you fix the money system, you won't have anything to step off of. And in order to fix the money system, we got to settle the accounts again. Um, so just want to try to, if I could, I want to try to tie in this point that Gary was making with regard to the production and consumption, and the fact that we have a structure now where some rich guy, is down there and extracting a toll out of the economy for everything that moves back and forth between production and consumption. And in economics, the way we measure things, that's everything. Okay, so that is to say, everything's a transaction. If all money is created as a debt, there's a guy down there extracting a toll for every bit of money that comes into existence, for every bit of money that funds a transaction, for every transaction. Why? Why? That's the question. When you've been doing something for 100 years, Nick, I understand the difficulty in trying to conceptualize, doing something differently, but we're at that point, you see. We're at that point where, we have to take the hard look and say, you know what? We need to do something better than this. And that's why, what are we advocating? We're advocating that rather than have the person exacting the toll, we have the people themselves, okay? The people themselves. That's who the government is. If you're in charge of the government, the way to get in charge of the government is have a new money system. The people themselves providing the means of exchange for production and consumption. Where's the need for the debt? The only need for the debt is when somebody, one of those players, after an amount of money has been created, is short for their transaction. Then they go borrow it. No problem. No problem. That's what debts are supposed to be. Not to have an adequate means of exchange. I go back to Robert Hemphill. 'Tis a staggering thought. We rely on the banks to create all the money. If the banks don't create it, and they ain't, we don't have it, and we don't. So, another point that Gary made, with all respectfully to Gary, because he's so hung up on the assets, well, they create money, they're secured, everything's secured. It's secured, it's not secured, it's unsecured. Those are all just part of the mechanics of that system, and that's why he has a hard time sort of squaring his notions with regard to providing the heart transplant or whatever that was to the homeless man. Now, who's a homeless man? Now, in this country, where I live, any of us could be homeless at any time. I'm one, failed health episode away from being homeless myself. Okay. So I have a lot of respect for the homeless people, and the fact that if somebody wants a heart transplant, maybe the heart transplant's not a good. But the fact of the matter is that Gary is not able to square health and education as vital components of our socioeconomic infrastructure, okay, with the fact that money is used to secure assets. Because where's the asset in giving somebody health? Well, the answer is, of course, that it's in the hospital. It's in the wages of the doctor and the nurse and the person who cleans up after them at night. Okay? All of that stuff is part of the economy, an important part of the economy that needs to be funded through the money system. So we can't just have them securing assets. Okay? The money system is to provide the means of exchange for production and consumption, and we consume health services. That's what we do. We consume health services. Somebody has to produce health services. So, and with education, education being an important part of our social infrastructure, and the bridges, and the bridges. And the question becomes, why do we pay 3 times for the bridges? That's the question. You say it's easy to see why we only want to pay once for the health care and once for the education, once through. Okay, but the bridge, for some reason, it sounds like, well, it's okay if we have to go out and borrow that money rather than create it into existence and be included in part of the federal budget and say that's how we're going to spend the money. For some reason, that don't make sense these days. Okay, but it will. It will come to make sense, and there is no rationale. There's no rationale behind it because the money's created. It's just that it's created as a debt. Money don't exist because we lack a permanent money system. Whenever a debt gets paid back, we destroy that, and we need another debt in order to replace it. So that's kind of part of the economic solution. Okay. Um, Now you questioned whether my doubling of the nominal debt amount is to count for the total debt service payments difference, is accurate, and whether we actually owe 100 trillion um, without buying another bag of groceries. What I know that I've seen that a figure of the doubling. Okay. Um, Stephen LeChant said in his paper that at 2005, okay, we had 40 trillion total credit market debt and average 5% weighted average interest, which is a doubling of 14 years. I'm pretty sure is the way that works. So I don't know. You got 10, 12 trillion, out there in your residential mortgages. Okay, your commercial mortgages are pretty much the same. Okay, so that's all that real estate investment money. Okay. You got your 30-year Treasury bonds. So there's a bunch of 30-year money out there. Okay. What's the average term of the rest of it? Does it come back to less than 14 years? It would have to, unless we take the weighted average interest rate down, which is what they're doing. Okay. Remember what I said about the bankers know this is coming. Why is there a federal funds rate sitting on the floor? Sitting on the floor to provide 0% interest money. Okay, introduce it into the economy at 0% interest, which is great because that's what we should be having all along. Okay, but they're doing it to subsidize the bankers that are holding that debt and helping them to pay off, some of that debt. But it also, if you really understand it, the implication is this: there's no exit strategy, and there will be no exit strategy. Okay, the removal of any of that 0% money from the economy drives up that average interest rate, enhances the date of reckoning, so to speak. So it's all part of that game. But importantly, again, my interest in discussing this is because it's the money system that's broken. It's the money system that's insolvent. And the way to solve the problem is a new money system. That's the way to solve the problem. It can be done. Ultimately, we see whether Greece stays in the European Economic Union, okay, monetary union, because they're being required to, or the proposed workout plan for them is to have approximately 50% of their future earnings of the peoples to pay off the debts that are out there. Okay. Now you take a look around Greece and you can tell me, when you look at Greece, does it look like they've been living, for 30 years beyond their means? I don't think so. No, it's because we have a debt money system where all money comes into existence as a debt. And an uneducated group of economists that are advising those sovereign nations, we can fix it.